Okay, guys, I'm back waiting on Chris to get back in the studio. If I could get a few of you to just comment here and let me know if you guys are seeing me better once you join in. We are back live. So once you guys are joined in, if you would let me know in the comments if you are seeing and hearing this broadcast okay. Hopefully the signal is better this time around and we'll have more success this time. So if you are seeing it and hearing it good, then let me know. That way we will know that we are good to go. And then I'll bring Chris back on here in just a moment. And we apologize for the technical difficulties there. Here's Chris now. Let me go ahead and bring Chris on. And Chris, I'm just asking people to let us know if they're hearing and seeing us better now. Hopefully they will be. Hopefully we'll see it in the comments here in just a moment. But anyway, Chris, I think we got a better signal, so we'll dive right in. I wanted to get your thoughts on a couple things before we really dive into the SEC tournament on some stuff that is kind of happened today over the last couple of days. First of all, the Ferris Trophy winner got announced today, obviously, and that went to Tanner Hall of Southern Miss. Great player, and I'm not trying to be a homer here, but I mean, I don't see how Tim Elko shouldn't have won it with just the numbers he put up yet again. I feel like that the numbers he had were probably better, but and the competition that he plays, no offense to Southern Miss, but is far and away better than what Tanner Hall faces on a regular basis. But either way, it's hard to, the awards, it's hard to say take it away from a good player. But I was curious of your thoughts on Tanner Hall versus Tim Elko side of that argument.
Yeah, Tanner Hall, I think 7-2 on the season. ERA a little bit elevated in my mind. 2.6, 2.7, somewhere in that range. Number of strikeouts really jumped off the page, though. I think he's averaging about 1.5 strikeouts per inning, so really solid in that category. I think you're right, though, about level of competition. And you look at how Elko affects the game. So just look at the stats over this past weekend. Elko walks 7 times. That's not necessarily it's not necessarily Tim Elko that's doing that. That's a Texas A&M pitching around Tim Elko to get to the next guy in the lineup. So in my mind, how Elko affects the game as a whole, and from a standpoint of career at Ole Miss, I just found it difficult not to give that award to Elko. I didn't get a vote this year in that award. I can understand both sides of the argument. Obviously, from an Ole Miss perspective, I'm gonna go to bat for Elko every time. So I think he should have been the Ferris Award winner this year. However, I understand the decision, and hopefully we'll get to see maybe Elko and Tanner square off here in a couple of weeks and see who the better man is at that point in time.
Yeah, and for those of you that aren't aware of what Chris is referring to, some more projections came out today. D1 baseball still has Ole Miss going to Stanford. Obviously, these are just projections, but some more projections have Ole Miss going to Hattiesburg, which is a much closer drive for Ole Miss fans and a tough regional. There were some tough teams there. Georgia Tech, Southern Miss, and the other Davidson was the other one. That's a tough regional. Georgia Tech's been playing out of their mind this year, but just projections, of course, you just never know what's going to happen. But yeah, very possible that we could see Elko and Allen go at it in a regional game. The other, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I think that the Hattiesburg Regional obviously lines up a little bit better for us from a fan perspective as well. Just having that home that drivability makes a huge difference when you look at things. And we've already played Southern Miss twice now, so we kind of know their lineup. Obviously, they're going to know our lineup quite a bit as well.
Right.
But I think it plays into our hands a little bit better than if we get somewhere where we don't know any of the teams that we played.
Yeah, and I mean, quite frankly, Ole Miss seems to have done better against teams they don't face regularly than they have against the teams they see on an every year basis this year. Like you said, I mean, look at what happened this past weekend. Tough weekend against Texas A&M, and they're very good. They are the most annoyingly slow team I think I've ever watched in the history of baseball. Just unbelievable. 3 games in a row taking 4+ hours. That is just insane to me.
Yeah, a little nauseating, actually.
Yeah.
It's tough baseball to watch. I actually started doing a pitch count on Derek Diamond on Saturday because of the amount of time. And the amount of time it was taking from the time he got the ball until the time he delivered the ball. And this is not a shot at Derek at all, but more of a shot at the amount of time that the A&M batters are taking to get back in the box and get settled. It was like 25 seconds, which is just an inordinate amount of time. And the quick pitch came into play, or, supposedly came into play on Thursday night with Gaddis and with Rock. But the umpire had put the ball into play. And so when you look at that, that's the umpire telling the pitcher, okay, you now have the right and the opportunity to throw the ball.
Yeah.
And the amount of time that Rock takes to get set up in the box, I can understand how Gaddis, was like, hey, buddy, let's go. And, it was unfortunate for Gaddis that the pitch that he threw got hit out of the park, and then one thing led to another, a couple of ejections here and there. But I can kind of understand where Gaddis was coming at on the quick pitch from the aspect of, hey, I'm ready to go. And if the umpire says I'm ready to go, then I'm going to throw the ball. So, I don't like 4-hour games. I don't think anybody likes 4-hour games. I understand from A&M's perspective of drawing things out a little bit. Maybe that's their style. Maybe that's Jim Schlossnagle's style. And I'm not taking a shot at Jim Schlossnagle at all, but it's not good for the game. It's not good for your average viewer of the game.
Well, and ironically enough, I actually ran into Scott Klein earlier today, and I know Ole Miss fans are really fond of him, so I found that kind of funny. No words were exchanged between us, just so everybody knows. But anyway, I thought that was kind of funny that I happened to bump into him of all people. So he is here this week. For those of you wondering, I don't know what game he's going to be umpiring, but I do know that he's here. We'll find that out, obviously, come game time for everyone. The other awards, of course, were announced today as well. Utterly shocking that Tony Vitello wins Coach of the Year. I'm flabbergasted that he would win Coach of the Year.
Yeah, no surprise there. There were a number of A&M fans I live in Texas, so there were a number of A&M fans on my Twitter feed that made the case for Schlossnagle, which you obviously could.
Yeah.
From not making the tournament last year to being number 2 in the conference this year, winning the West. So you could obviously make the case for Schlossnagle for being a Coach of the Year, not necessarily for having the best team. And I think that's the differentiation that the A&M fans wanted to make, was who did the most with what they had and who made their team better. And obviously Schlossnagle is the answer to that question. Yeah. But Vitello, from a standpoint of product on the field, 25 wins, things like that, you can't dispute that. Don't really want to get into antics that Tony may bring to the table and things like that. But obviously, a very good coach.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you. I personally feel that the award should be more for who overachieved, like you were saying. Who did more with less? Because Vitello, the guy's got a team like nobody's seen in the SEC in several years, just top to bottom. So he's expected to win the amount of games that he won with that staff and that lineup. But again, you can't argue his success. The second, I believe it's the second most SEC wins behind Vanderbilt's 27-win SEC team from a few years back. So you can't argue with his success. And as much as people don't like Vitello right now, some people love him, some people hate him. There's really no in between with him. The guy can flat out coach baseball one way or another, regardless of how you feel about him. So I thought he would. I thought certainly if it wasn't Vitello, I agree with you that it should have been Schlossnagle. But either way, either one of them, you can make a case for both.
Absolutely, and I just think that from another part of the awards perspective, and we're probably going there next, but I'll go ahead and go there. Jacob Gonzalez being named first team shortstop, very, very well deserved. Yeah. Great athlete, projected to go top 5 next year. Tim Elko, second team first baseman, and then Hunter Elliott was named to the all freshman team. All 3 of those very, very well deserved. Player that got overlooked again this year, you look at Kevin Graham, and I understand he had an injury for a month, but look at the numbers that he's putting up, the batting average, the home runs. You put that month back into play, and the guy's hitting 16, 17 home runs. He's still going to hit the same average, I think. So, a little disappointed on the Graham front, but I understand that as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Kevin, he seems to let that stuff fuel him. He gets overlooked. People just forget he's on the team. And I don't know if it's because Tim Elko is such a big part of this team and he is such a well-known name, and you've got your Tim Elko. And then here lately, the storyline's been Dylan DeLucia, and you've got Hayden Dunhurst hitting better. And Kevin Graham was just you've got your Kemp Alderman who can just hit a gigantic home run. And it's almost like Kevin Graham, his consistency gets lost in there. But the guy's defense has been off the charts this season. The catches that he makes out there, I don't understand. I'm with you. I don't understand how they can just continue to overlook him. And I get there are plenty of good outfielders in the SEC, and you can only pick so many. But for him not to make any of them, I mean, just doesn't make any sense at all.
It does fuel him. I agree with that. I just think maybe his personality he's such a soft-spoken guy, at least the interactions that I've had with Kevin have been really soft-spoken. So maybe that personality doesn't translate well with sports writers. I don't know. But Kevin is a team player. He gets the job done at the plate. Like you said, he gets the job done in the field. He's going to make a lot of money playing baseball here in the very near future.
Yeah, and I was talking to Mitch Praxel of Ole Miss Media today, and obviously this is just speculation on our part. We were just talking about Kevin having another year of eligibility. Kevin did not talk about this with us. We didn't ask him about it, but just he's got another year of eligibility left, and both of us seem to feel that it's going to depend on what he gets told by MLB, his agents and scouts and things of that nature. If he ends up being a late round draft pick, he might decide that he wants to come back and play another year of college ball. But if he's going to be a top 10 draft pick, if he gets told, yeah, you're top 10 rounds, I don't see him coming back to Oxford. That's just our speculation. Of course, again, Kevin wisely has not talked about it. None of us have asked him about it. There's no need for that right now. And I think he'll discuss that when the time comes. But I will be curious to see kind of what he is projected as after losing some time this year due to injury.
Yeah, it's going to be the draft is always really interesting with college baseball about who goes, who stays, and then who gets drafted from the signee class. So it'll be another interesting year. The juniors this year, obviously, if they don't sign, they lose a lot of leverage as far as their signing bonus goes. So I don't know how that factors into the equation. Obviously, Elko passed up something last year. We don't know what that was, but he really wasn't happy with what they were talking about for him. So it'll be interesting to see with him about what happens. And the draft it's just that time of year that everybody gets really nervous, but then, we get a little bit excited about who's coming back, who's going to go on and do really great things and represent Ole Miss in the minors and in the majors.
A couple of comments we'll get to real quick before we move on. Curtis says, hope Scott Klein doesn't call any of our games this week. I expected to see that one at some point. And then he also said that he'd love for Kevin to come back. I think every Ole Miss fan, if you ask them, hey, do you want Kevin to come back? They're not going to say, no, I hope he leaves. Everybody wants Kevin to come back with that extra year. It's just again, it's all going to depend on what kind of money he thinks he can make and what kind of prospect he thinks he is. Because you can't blame the guy if he gets told he's going to be, yeah, this is what you're going to do, and you get this kind of X signing bonus. Well, yeah, you can't blame the guy for not. Even with NIL being the way it is right now, you're not going to blame the guy for deciding, you know what, I think I can go make this pro money right now.
Absolutely. NIL's tough at the baseball level, even in Oxford with fans as driven as they are. I think it's a really tough sell for businesses as well as the student athletes. It takes away a little bit from their studies, the energy that they have to devote toward it. It's just a tough deal. And I think that over the next several years, it'll get better and easier for the student athletes. But right now, I think it's a little difficult.
A couple more things before we dive into the tournament. And again, I know social media is not real life, and the people on social media don't make up the majority of the fan base. But I did see a few people. I just saw a couple things I just wanted to get to and get your thoughts on during the Texas A&M series. There were several people that I saw that essentially, and I don't think they really believe this. If you asked them, do you really believe that? But there were people honestly tweeting out and posting out that Mike Bianco on Saturday was throwing the senior day game throwing the game because you left Drew McDaniel in for those 2 home runs. You are out of your mind if you think that Mike Bianco is purposely losing a game on senior day. I don't care what you tweet. I don't care what you post. I don't care what you think about Mike Bianco's coaching. If you honestly believe he's out here throwing games on purpose, come on. Let's be real here.
You could not convince me of that in a million years that Mike Bianco would intentionally throw a game. If it was midweek and we were trying to work on some things, trying to get Drew some extra work, trying to figure out how he reacts in situations, yes, I can see him leaving him in intentionally to do that, but there's no way that Mike leaves him in thinking that we're going to get a 3-run home run and a grand slam hit against us.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I saw a couple people when, Jim Schlossnagle, he tweeted out about how good of a coach Bianco is and a program builder. And a few folks were like, oh, well, make room for him on your staff. And here's the thing. Regardless of what you think about Bianco at Ole Miss, people have their opinions on that, as you well know. You don't want that guy going to be an assistant coach at another SEC program because guess what assistants do in college baseball? They recruit. And you don't want Mike Bianco recruiting against you at Ole Miss. I can assure you, you don't want his main job being to go get kids to play for your program. If it's not,
I don't think we want Mike Bianco coaching at Missouri. I don't think we want Mike Bianco coaching at Alabama or any other place in the SEC, much less an assistant coach. We can get into this debate at another time, and I think it's a valid debate to talk about. But you don't want to see Mike in the other dugout.
You don't. You really don't. The guy, regardless of, I get people have their opinions on where he can get, and we're not going to dive into all that right now. But like you said, the guy can coach one way or another. He can flat out coach. He might not coach as well as some people would like, but you don't want him coaching against you, like you said.
No.
Well, obviously we're here. I'm here in Hoover for one reason and one reason only, and that's because the SEC tournament starts tomorrow. And of course, Ole Miss has Game 3 tomorrow, which is going to be 3:30 if everything starts on time, which is not going to almost 100% guarantee that. But either way, first game will go tomorrow morning at 9:30. I'm sorry, I said 3:30. I apologize. I meant to say 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. But 9:30 tomorrow morning, the game will get started with Georgia and Alabama. And Alabama sneaking into the tournament somehow as the 11th seed and looking for a few more wins to maybe. I mean, their RPI is not bad. I need to go back. I need to go and look at the updated RPI. Honestly, I forgot to do that. Neglected to do that before we came on. But they're trying to sneak into an NCAA tournament berth, and then Florida and South Carolina, who just played a series this weekend to finish out the regular season, are going back at it tomorrow in Game 2. I mean, David Kellum was mentioning that. Boy, you hate to have to play just like Auburn and Kentucky. Boy, you hate to play the same team you just played, but at the same time, you've got your scouting report already. You don't have to spend any extra time doing that.
Yeah, that's a nice thing about doing that. It's a weird thing, and we're probably going to see that happen in college football here as they go away from divisions like in the Pac-12 and places like that. So it's going to happen. I'm looking up the RPI for Alabama right now.
Looks like it's 48 according to Warren Nolan.
Let's see. Yeah, that's what I got too. It's 47, 48. So they need some work in the RPI category to make the tournament, obviously. But it just depends on what Georgia's already set pretty much. So it depends on what Georgia does, who Georgia throws. The Florida-South Carolina game, you would figure Florida's going to take that pretty handily. I can't remember what they did over the series last weekend, but I would imagine that Kevin O'Sullivan's got his guys ready to go for that game.
Yeah, and I think South Carolina took Saturday's game, if I'm not mistaken. But if I'm not mistaken, Florida took 2 out of 3. But I'll have to go back and look to verify that. But I do know, I'm pretty sure South Carolina took Saturday's game. But then again, everything was pretty much set on Saturday as far as where there were only – the bottom teams were the only ones on Saturday that didn't know what seed they were really going to get. And Ole Miss was pretty much locked into the 8-9 after they lost on Thursday night. If they would have swept, maybe you win 2 out of 3, you can jump up to that 7 seed depending on what else happens. But you really had to sweep A&M to really have a chance to move into that 7 spot or 6 spot to get out of that 8-9 matchup. But once you lose on Thursday, and then once you lose on Saturday, they were locked in regardless pretty much of what happened. Georgia almost helped them out by almost blowing a 7-0 lead to Missouri. Actually, they did blow a 7-0 lead to Missouri, but then they came back and Missouri blew a 10-7 lead to Georgia. So Georgia walked it off to lock them into that. So Ole Miss is stuck in that 8-9 matchup. And I was saying all week, I don't care who we play on Tuesday. Just don't let it be Vanderbilt. I do not want to listen to Vandy Whistler for 3 hours. And then we get stuck with doggone Vanderbilt because they can't keep a lead over LSU for 3 consecutive days. They get embarrassed by LSU. And now I've got 3 hours tomorrow of the worst fan in college baseball to listen to out here in Hoover. But Tim Corbin, this is not a guy that wants to lose on Tuesday.
No. The whole LSU thing is just weird, right? I mean, they get swept at home against us last weekend or 2 weekends ago, and then they go on the road in Nashville, and they get Vanderbilt all 3 games. Either one of those things, betting people do not make that bet. They don't. Nobody would have said that Ole Miss is going to go down to Baton Rouge on a weekend and take 3, which they've never done before. Nor are they going to say, oh, yeah, after that happens, then LSU is going to go up to Nashville and take all 3 from Vanderbilt. You just don't go into a Tim Corbin coach team and sweep them at their place. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I'm shocked, honestly. I mean, but then again, it's been such a weird year in the SEC. You look at what's happened around the SEC this year. Ole Miss comes into the season ranked top 5 in the country, the same lineup that got them to a super regional last year offensively. Granted, they lost Doug Nikhazy, but offensively they were pretty much there. They were supposed to be there. And they are sneaking into the SEC tournament. And for a little while, they were one of the teams on the outside looking in without that run at the end of the season that they made with the games over Southern Miss and LSU and then taking one against A&M. That really that got them in, especially the Southern Miss and LSU series clinched it. But then you have the defending national champions down the road in Starkville who went from first to worst, literally worst record in the conference, don't even make the tournament. The SEC is a humbling conference. And I get you lost Landon Sims, who's the best pitcher in college baseball, unabashedly. But that he gets you 7-8 more wins at most. So even that doesn't guarantee you anything.
Yeah, the state thing is really weird this year, and I don't really know how to explain it other than it's baseball. That's the best way to explain it. Before the season, if you would ask any Ole Miss fan, hey, after the first 7 series, we're going to be 7-14, I think that there would have been a lot of laughter in the room and said, you've lost your mind, and show me the map to that. And it's just inexplicable sometimes. We were 0-7 in game 2s before the Missouri weekend. Explain that to me. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, and I don't care who we threw out there, but to go 0-7 in game 2s just is inexplicable again.
Yeah, and a lot of those were with Hunter Elliott, who pitched well in those games. The offense couldn't pick him up, and then by the time it got to the bullpen, there were a few bad pitches here and there, and that did him in. But it really, you look at Hunter Elliott's record prior to these last few starts, the record wasn't what he was.
No. Elliott's a special player, and I talked to Hunter a little bit before game 3 at LSU, and I was like, hey, did you get assigned 26 or did you choose 26? And he goes, well, I've been 10 my whole life, and that number was taken, obviously, by John Rice Plumlee before he transferred, and I just kind of got 26. But when you look at Hunter wearing 26, and he wore it early in the season, he was a dead ringer for Doug Nikhazy.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of a cool a transition from Doug to Hunter as far as that pitching thing, lefty, kind of, just a neat guy. And, he's worn the number really, really well, which really makes me excited for the next couple of years to come to see what Hunter can do on either a Friday night slot or a Saturday slot.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, if barring anything crazy happening, obviously you never know with the transfer portal what's going to happen. That's just how college athletics are right now. But as long as Dillon and Hunter stay, if Ole Miss still has Dillon and Hunter in their rotation next season, they will be, barring anything crazy, they should be solid rotation guys for the weekend. And then you just got to find your Sunday guy, and whether or not that's going to be Diamond again, or if they're going to bring somebody else in. The Washburn and Gaddis experiment didn't quite work out as well as the staff would have hoped, I'm sure, this season. But you've got two solid guys next season, and with the improvement they should have in the offseason, we could have a very solid rotation next year.
Absolutely. I like a Dillon and Hunter 1-2 punch, and it'd be cool to see. And it's almost like a Doug and Gunner 1-2 punch to an extent. Obviously, Dillon's not Gunner, but Doug and Hunter have some definite comparables when you look at things. Hunter doesn't overpitch. Doug never overpitched. It was never about velocity with Doug. It was all about position of pitches and matchups and things like that. And that's kind of the way Hunter pitches as well. So I'm really excited to see the next couple of years out of those two guys. We've got Dillon for I think one more year, and then we've got Hunter for at least 2 more years before he hopefully goes on to greener pastures.
Hopefully so. And Trent in the SIP says, great show. Thank you, Trent. We appreciate you listening. Now, as far as Ole Miss's matchup tomorrow, again, been a weird year for Vanderbilt. We're used to seeing a Tim Corbin Vanderbilt team guarantee Omaha every year. I mean, you can almost write it in stone at the beginning of the season. You're going to see Vanderbilt in Omaha. That's what we're used to with this team. And they were 500 in conference play, and then they just got swept by LSU in just embarrassing fashion for them, I'm sure, to lose by the amount of runs that they lost by in that series. But they come in not to be taken lightly. And the thing about Vanderbilt is, yes, Ole Miss is still wanting to win at least one to feel comfortable with an NCAA tournament berth. Vanderbilt's in, but they're on the hosting bubble right now. And Tim Corbin is not going to come in here and just throw a little scrub out there on the mound and be like, you know what, it's Hoover, we're the 8th seed, we're already in the tournament, not worried about it. No, he wants to win a few and solidify a regional coming to Nashville. So this is not going to be an easy win by any stretch of the imagination, regardless of the fact that it's Vanderbilt.
It is not. So from some comparable standpoint, over the last 10 games, Ole Miss is 8-2, Vanderbilt's 5-5. Vanderbilt's going to throw a lefty freshman young man, Carter Holton, 7-3 with a 3.42 ERA, 86 strikeouts. So obviously pitches really well in that category. Tim Corbin describes him as a freshman with a natural and mature approach to pitching. I think he may have been, from what I read, the only freshman ever to start at Vanderbilt every weekend of the series and never get relegated to the pen or to a midweek start situation. So Tim Corbin goes on to say Carter is very athletic on the mound and repeats his delivery consistently while throwing the ball over the plate with several different pitches. He keeps the game simple. He competes. He was the most advanced freshman arm that we had in the fall, which is evident by the fact that he's continuing to start. He's a blue-collar kid with a blue-collar attitude, Corbin finishes up. So expect to see a lot of strikes tomorrow, I would say. And then, as we know, Ole Miss is going with DeLucia. DeLucia only threw 57 pitches the other night. That was on Thursday night. 5.1 record with a 4.6 ERA and 64 strikeouts. I don't expect DeLucia to have bad starts back-to-back. What about you?
I don't. I said that, from the get-go. Evie and I were talking, and she asked my opinion on who I thought we would start before it was officially announced. And I said, it's got to be Dillon. He only threw 56, 57 pitches. And I don't see him having, like you said, those bad outings. The guy got roughed up a little bit on short rest after just pitching his, butt off the previous weekend in Baton Rouge over a 2-day period. And against a very good Texas A&M offense, the best offense top to bottom they've seen outside of Tennessee, in my opinion, just with the amount of pitches they foul off and the quality at bats that they get, long, drawn out at bats. They're throwing a lot of pitches, every batter. So that's just a different kind of offense. And Vanderbilt's a good offense, yes, but I don't see DeLucia having that kind of outing again. I think he's going to be just fine. We talked to him earlier today. The guy his mental attitude is just incredible. He literally told us, if Mike would if I could, my arm was up to it, Mike would let me pitch every night, I'd pitch every night. The kid wants to be out there.
He reminds me a lot of Parker Caracci from a couple years ago. And, Parker had that bulldog mentality. And I think DeLucia has a lot of that bulldog mentality too.
Yeah. The guy wants to pitch. He doesn't mind throwing 100+ pitches every time he goes out there. He'd pitch every day. He'd pitch all 3 weekend games if Mike would let him. If his arm would hold up, he would be out there Friday, Saturday, Sunday every weekend if he could. The guy's attitude is just his mental focus is there. And even after a bad outing last time, I think he's already put it behind him. He was out there having fun at BP today, just out there taking it in. First time in Hoover for him. And just really enjoying himself. And you can tell. And I think that's really going to contribute tomorrow to a solid outing for him. I think as long as he stays loose, he said he feels a lot looser. He said last weekend he felt tight. He said, I felt a lot tighter, didn't get as much of a good stretch in. He said, this weekend I've gotten a good stretch in. I feel a lot looser. We've been stretching a lot. He attributes a lot to stretching. I don't know if you noticed that. Stretching is a big thing with Dylan.
Yeah, our guy – I noticed this at the LSU series because I had a really good viewpoint of our dugout. And the guys are having fun again, which is really cool to see. And I'm sure it happened a little bit during the Missouri series. Didn't have a really good view on the TV of the Missouri series. But the LSU series, I was looking like straight down into the dugout basically. And they're just having so much fun. And you can just see the body language is changed a whole lot from where they were before with, it was almost like the pleas during post game for people to stay with the team and to hey, hang with us. We're going to turn this around, and we're going to we're really trying hard and everything else like that. And they were obviously, and the results just weren't proving it out. So I'm really, if there's one thing that I'm really happy about this season, it's the guys have found a way to enjoy the game again, because that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, and you can tell that. If you go back to the Tennessee series and just how bad that was, and then following that Tennessee series, how bad the team looked there for a little while. You looked at when they got down, you almost had no hope that they were going to come back. But then you look at even the Texas A&M, all 3 games, Texas A&M jumped out to a lead. It was 7-0 in the first game after 2, 3-0 after 1 in the second game. Every single game this weekend, they fought back at least to an extent. They were putting runs back up there. You knew they were going to make it a game again. And that's something that I think what you mentioned, the body language, the attitude, that's part of it, because you have to have that attitude like, hey, we're going to be fine. Whereas a few weeks ago, you were like, well, these guys are defeated. You could just see it on their face. They're not going to win this game, and you would hate to say it, but you could just tell they were swinging at everything. If all you had to throw was throw them a curveball in the dirt, they were going to strike out. Now they're taking pitches. They're walking a lot. They're up there making the starting pitchers work. They're getting to the other team's bullpen before they get to our bullpen. The whole mindset has changed, and it's been a world of difference. Yeah,
we'll go back to a thing we mentioned a little bit ago, and I think the difference with this is Kevin Graham. Back in the lineup, that month that he was out, I don't know what the record was. I'd have to go back and take a look at it. But Graham just brings a lot of consistency in his approach to the plate and really locks that lineup down. He hits for power. He walks a little bit, not as much as other people do, but he hits for contact. So he really is, that guy at the plate that you need at the plate. And when he was out of the lineup, he was a really tough player to replace.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember telling a few people that, hey man, just wait till Kevin gets back. The guy's a leader. You realize how much you miss him in that dugout when he's not there, or not in the dugout. He's always in the dugout, but on the field and at the plate. He talked about it last weekend with that ridiculous at bat he had. Just the fans willed him to hit him at bat, and just his patience at the plate. And that feeds over. As you always say it, hitting is contagious. Hitting is contagious. And it's so true. The guys, when one guy comes back and lights that fire under the rest of the team, everybody else will follow. They just, it's almost like it just starts to, okay, we've got life. We've got some hope. We've got some belief. we're in this thing now, and you see it. I mean, I don't think if you pick anybody, experts, Kendall at D1 baseball, any of the guys would have told you Ole Miss is going to go sweep LSU in Baton Rouge. Not going to happen. And they wouldn't. You look at what a few hits will do, and a few patient at bats will do, and that's all you need.
Yeah, I don't know that there's outside of parents and players. I don't know that there's anybody that would have said that Ole Miss is going to go down to Baton Rouge and sweep. I mean, sure, I might have said we'll take the series, but a sweep was just. I mean, even going into game 2, hey, let's just get one more of these last 2 and we'll be good. But to come out with the sweep was just so cool. Let's talk a little bit about the common opponents that Vanderbilt and Ole Miss have had. So I went through this afternoon. Tennessee both got swept. South Carolina both went 1-2. Kentucky both went 2-1. Missouri, bottom of the cellar. We both went 3-0 against them. A&M took the series from both of us. So the difference was with Auburn, which is our first opponent of the conference season, right. We took that series. Vanderbilt dropped that series. Vanderbilt took 2 of 3 against Arkansas in kind of a weird series that ended with a 7-inning game on either Saturday or Sunday whenever they played their game 3. So it was a little bit weird. And then LSU was the big outlier. So as we know, LSU played Ole Miss and Vanderbilt in consecutive weekends. So when you look at it, that's really kind of a common time of the season. So pretty decent comparison. And we swept we swept LSU, and Vanderbilt got swept by LSU. So I think that kind of bodes well for us, both from a confidence standpoint and from a at the plate and on the mound standpoint.
Well, and that's what the Arkansas series is the only reason that Ole Miss is the 9 and Vanderbilt's the 8, because of who Arkansas beat, and then Vanderbilt beat Arkansas 2 out of 3. It came down to that. The math was insane. I talked to a couple of guys out there who know more about math than I do, because math was never a strong point. And they went and did all the work, and that's why Ole Miss is the 9. But yeah, I mean, I get Vanderbilt's probably going to be angry tomorrow. People, everybody's probably nervous. They just got swept, and Corbin's probably mad, and they're ready to, they're not going to. But at the same time, Ole Miss ain't going to be happy either. They just lost 2 out of 3 to A&M and gave up double-digit runs in the 2 games they lost. And you take a 5-2 lead on Saturday, and you end up losing. What was it, 12-5? I think was the final after those 9th-inning home runs. So both these teams are coming in ready for a win, and you look at what Ole Miss did against that LSU lineup with Dylan Cruz in it in particular. And granted, they didn't have Jacob Berry when Ole Miss played them, but they're still a ridiculous lineup, top to bottom, with those kind of numbers and home run hitting guys that they've got, what they can do. I think Ole Miss has a very good shot. And you look at what these two teams are on paper, very even. I mean, Vanderbilt hits 287 as a team. It's not like they're out here just smacking the ball around like Arizona did last year. And they've only got 67 home runs as a team. So I mean, Ole Miss is on paper. Ole Miss is certainly the better team offensively, technically on paper. But the one player I think you've really got to keep off base is Enrique Bradfield. You have got to keep him off base.
There's no doubt. Bradfield's a special dude. He's going to go. I don't know what his projection is, but good gosh, if he's not a top 10 player in a draft class, I've never seen one. I can't remember what it was last year, but in my notes, I've got that he's perfect in stealing bases this year. And you might say, oh, that's really cool, perfect in stealing bases. What's he got, like 10, 20? No, the man has stolen 42 bases this year. It is incredible. Last year, it wasn't perfect, but I believe it was in the 50s. I mean, the guy can absolutely fly. He plays center field, so a guy that plays center field and can cover that amount of ground on the base paths, what he can do in the outfield. He just eats out. Really cool. The one thing that Vanderbilt does that we don't do is they hit for average a little bit better than we do. So Spencer Jones is at 379. Dominique Keegan is at 366, and then Bradfield's at 322. And then the perspective on the stolen bases is Bradfield's got 42. Ole Miss as a team this year, 31.
Oh, yeah. Ole Miss base running has been god-awful this season. I mean, just if it's one thing that you just sometimes scratch your head about, it's just why were we trying to steal that base there?
Yeah.
But Bradfield, if he gets a good jump, Dunhurst is great behind the plate. He's not throwing him out. Nobody's throwing him out.
No, nobody. I mean, obviously, the numbers figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, nobody is. And the problem is, like you mentioned, that 322 average, not only do you have to keep him off base, but he doesn't like being kept off base. He's hitting 322 is incredible. He's got 68 hits this season and 211 at bats. I mean, the guy is a machine. And he's not out here cranking home runs left and right, but he makes runs count because he gets on base, and all you got to do is hit a base hit. He's scoring from first.
Yeah, and I can't imagine the amount of pressure it puts on a pitcher when you're trying to keep them close, to try to keep that run on a single off the board, because that's basically, like you said, what you're looking at. You talked a little bit ago about Vanderbilt only having 67 home runs. In comparison, Ole Miss has 91. They've only got one player with more than 10 home runs, whereas we've got Elko with 19, Gonzalez with 16, and Graham with 10. And we've talked about Graham's season being shortened by his hand injury. So you're looking about, realistically, if Graham doesn't go down with that month hand injury, you're probably looking at more in the 16 to 18 range, in my opinion.
Yeah, and their ERA is a little bit better overall, 3.97 for them. If I'm not mistaken, Ole Miss is in the 4 to 5 range. I need to look at an update since the weekend. But they, their starter 3.42, and their bullpen. I mean, their highest bullpen ERA is down at the very bottom. They got 3 guys over 6, but those are guys that don't have. I mean, they've pitched 5 innings and 4 innings respectively. So those aren't the guys getting all the work. I mean, you got 2 guys that have 29 innings that ERA is under 4. You got a guy at 26 whose ERA is right at 4. 49 innings, 4.35. They've got a solid bullpen, and not to mention their starter for tomorrow. Their starting pitching is very solid. So, yes, you want to chase the starter if you're Ole Miss, but you'd prefer to do it when you have a nice cushion, because they don't give up runs very easily. They're very, very solid, as you would expect from a Tim Corbin team. They're very solid on the mound. Yeah,
absolutely. Ole Miss is at 4.72 ERA overall.
Yeah, I knew it was approaching 5, but 4.72, which honestly, from where Ole Miss looked earlier in the season, 4.72 is pretty darn good.
Yeah, and we've had some outliers in games. The A&M game got a little bit out of hand with those 2 home runs. That's 7 runs right there in 2 swings. And then you look at the Southeast Missouri game, where we threw a couple pitchers that don't normally get action and gave up some runs in that game. So there's some outliers of games for Ole Miss that have added to the ERA.
Yeah, and that's, again, SEC West in particular is just brutal. And I mean, it is hard to compete up and down, but I think that's an advantage. I got to be careful how I say this, because the Tennessee is in the SEC East. But I think if you look at the tougher schedule of the two, based on the other teams in the SEC East, I mean, Ole Miss has had the tougher season schedule-wise. You've got LSU, Arkansas, and you've got Texas A&M, and Mississippi State. I know they had a down year, but Ole Miss lost to them. 2 out of 3. They did win the Governor's Cup, which I do think the Governor's Cup counts as a conference win for committee purposes, but not on the overall record. So that'll help Ole Miss out a little bit. Technically, they split the series with State, but again, that's just a brutal. I mean, up and down. That's brutal in the SEC West every weekend.
Yeah, it's tough. We got swept by Alabama too, and I realized that was a weekend that we just lacked a lot of confidence, both on the mound and at the plate. But at some point in time, and I said this, can't remember whether it was before or after, or before we got to 7-21, but at some point, 7-14. But at some point in time, as the old Bill Parcells expression went, you are what your record says you are. And so that's what we were fighting a little bit against from a confidence level, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's certainly. And then another one note on the pitching as well. Strikeouts for Vanderbilt, 562 for their pitching staff. Ole Miss has 543. And the walks very similar. Vanderbilt's walked 210, and Ole Miss has walked 205. So in the grand scheme of things, the numbers might look a little skewed depending on which pitcher you look at. But these two staffs have been very even, all things considered, all year long.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's game. It should be, hopefully a really fun baseball game to watch, close baseball game. Hopefully it's south of the of the 3:30 range. I'm looking for a little 3 hour to 3:15 range to help the guys in Hoover get back on schedule.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, I'm hoping for a nice overcast, cool day, and the rain can just hold off. That'd be perfect. Let's get started on time and let's finish on time. That would be ideal. But certainly a tough contest coming up. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Ole Miss is capable of winning in Hoover. This is the Ole Miss Invitational, after all. Everybody else just shows up,
That's the way it's been for a couple of years now. I think we had a couple of years ago we won it, and then the next year we finished second, and then last year we made it to the semifinals. So Hoover's been really good for us.
Yeah, and of course, I'll be curious to see just how much pitching Ole Miss ends up having to use. That will certainly play a factor in how the week goes. You would certainly hope that DeLucia gives you at least 7 strong innings tomorrow, like we know he's capable of doing. That would be fantastic. Give that bullpen some rest, and you want to get Vandy. It really doesn't matter how many pitchers the opposing team in this game uses, as long as you beat them, because they can use all the pitchers they want. If they lose, they're done. You don't want to be the guy. You don't want to be the team that wins, but you just used half your bullpen on day one. And guess who comes up on Wednesday is the mighty Tennessee Volunteers. Now, the good news about that game is, number one, I'd love another shot at Tennessee. I want another shot at them. They might run us off the field again, but I want another shot at them. But even if you lose to them, you got just double elimination. You're still in.
Yep. It should once you get past that Tuesday game, which is the scary game, it becomes a little bit more fun for you, and you're going to be around for a couple of days. So it kind of is an exhale situation where you can breathe a little bit deeper and just sit back and enjoy some of the other games as well as your game.
Yeah, for sure. And Curtis asked for the visitors tomorrow. Yes, Ole Miss is a visiting team. I don't know what color jerseys they're going to wear, and they have not announced that as of yet. Red, blue, it's going to be one of those two out of matches. It's not going to be the pinstripes. They're not the home team. So I would imagine they're probably going to go with the Reds, but it may depend on what Vanderbilt ends up wearing tomorrow. So we will see. But, man, I'm excited about it, Chris. This is going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully we'll see the Rebels keep the momentum going and shake off the series this last weekend and come out here and send Tim Corbin home early.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Should be a great game tomorrow. And hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy. And Chris and I will be back with you. And hopefully everything will work out well tomorrow. But we will have another show for you tomorrow for sure. And hopefully we'll keep on having them as the week goes on. But we will see. But thanks so much for joining us, guys, for all the comments. And this show will be available from now on for those of you that might not have caught it. Chris, it's been a pleasure. And hotty toddy, let's get that win tomorrow.
Great to visit with you, Austin. Enjoy the games tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Y'all do the same. And we'll be back tomorrow night with you guys live from Hoover. Have a great night, everybody.